Good morning to you all. Let's get to the details of yesterday's big Supreme Court decisions. The court ruling the president's financial records must be handed over to a New York grand jury, but Congress has more work to do to make its case, said the court. Both historic cases were decided by a 7-2 vote and sent back to the lower courts, with Trump appointees Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh in the majority. In each, it was the unanimous opinion of the justices that the President of the United States does not have absolute immunity, as he has claimed. Writing for the majority, Chief Justice John Roberts asserts no citizen, not even the president, is categorically above the common duty to produce evidence when called upon in a criminal proceeding. We reaffirm that principle today. Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance is investigating alleged hush money payments made to women who say they were involved in affairs with the president. President Trump denies that. The Supreme Court decided, however, that Congress is not yet entitled to see many of the same records sought in New York. It said the case should be returned to lower courts to examine whether Congress should narrow the parameters of the information it sought. So, Joyce Vance, let me begin this conversation with you. We've had almost a day now to sift through this ruling, through these decisions, 7-2 both. What do they mean specifically for the president? He at first was railing against them, then the White House was calling them wins. He had moved last night to victories for him because they were kicked back to lower courts. Will we see the documents? We know Cy Vance will. Will the public see these documents?
So the short answer to that question, Willie, is the public won't see any of Trump's tax records in the short term at least. But yesterday was a good day for the rule of law, one of the first in a long time. The battle is maybe won in the Supreme Court. The war over this issue is not over. But here's why I say it was a good day for the rule of law. Trump sought rulings from the Supreme Court that would have fully insulated him from any sort of investigation, whether it was a state DA with a criminal case or congressional oversight. And the Supreme Court said that's not the case. You can be investigated just like any other citizen. You're subject to oversight by Congress as a president. I don't think any legal expert expected that the Supreme Court would wave a magic wand and make Trump's tax returns public. So yesterday's rulings were about as good as we could have hoped for. This 7-2 ruling from the justices is something that we should focus on. This is a court that very often has been divided 5-4 on the big issues. That the Chief Justice mustered 7-2 majorities tells us, I think, a lot about the strength of this ruling, that the president is not above the law. And look, one thing we don't know is how quickly lower courts are prepared to act, whether or not the DA in Manhattan, Cy Vance, is sitting perhaps on a case that he's close to indicting. These could be slow matters that trickle on. Very often the president has gotten the benefit of the delay game. It's also possible that we could finally be entering a new era where the courts actually seek to engage in oversight over this president. The Supreme Court yesterday gave courts the ability to do that.
Yeah, and we know that the president believes that Supreme Court justices he installed, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, are there in part to defend him. And he's learning again and again and again that that's not the way they view their roles on this court. John Roberts, in his majority opinion, said the public has a right to every man's evidence. So, Joyce, what happens now in the Manhattan District Attorney's office? Cy Vance says, OK, we've got this. We waited a long time, but now we can start this case. We can reopen and go back to work. So how long will this be in the system? It's got to get kicked down from the lower court. We know that. But when might we see some production of evidence and the resumption of this trial?
So here's where the Manhattan DA is. He is in the middle of investigating. We don't know where he is. We frankly don't know everything that he's investigating, Willie. There's been talk that this is about Stormy Daniels. Tax returns can be a real roadmap for prosecutors on a whole host of fraud issues. So depending on what he has information about, this could be the linchpin for Cy Vance, or it could be something that requires further investigation. But the reality here is what he needs to get from the trial court is very modest. Really, the biggest bulk of it is that he will have to satisfy them that this request is not somehow overbroad, not meant to harass the president. And with that stunning federal indictment of Michael Cohen, in which the president is individual number one, an unindicted co-conspirator, it seems very likely that Vance's subpoenas will pass muster and that he will be entitled to move forward. And since he seeks Trump's tax records not from Trump himself, but from third parties who have said that they will comply with lawful final orders from a court, Vance could be prepared to move pretty quickly here. We just really don't know if he's sitting on a completed investigation or if he's still in the early stages.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.